Let's see. Am I up? I up. Alrighty. Hey everybody. Thanks for showing up. And let me pop the chat out real quick. There we go. Alrighty. So I don't have anything in particular planned today. There's a couple things I need to go over for Yariv, and now that he's here, showed up. Thanks for showing up, man. We can go ahead and do that. One of the things was a barrel shroud. Let me go ahead and pull up an image real quick. So one of these things here, you know, the little barrel thing with all the holes in it. There's a lot of different ways to accomplish something like that, and I'll show you the way I do it. And of course, the way I do it is super easy and super not real specific. And when you see the end product, you'll realize that a lot of it could be done using micromesh or nanomesh replacement with circles and replacing offset rows, kind of like when we were doing the knurling, to do that kind of stuff. So let's do a barrel shroud real quick. Okay, I think I remember the steps. We'll start with a cylinder here, and we'll go into polyframe mode here. We'll turn on make PolyMesh 3D, and we'll go ahead and just, you know, tap on the end of one of the cylinders here, hit W, and hold down Shift and grab the inside of that outer ring, and we're just going to stretch that into a barrel. In order to get this thing to smooth a little bit better, what we're going to do is, there's a couple different ways to do this. You can go over here to Geometry, and you can go over here to Crease, and you can just drop that crease tolerance down and hit Crease, and I just drop it down around 40s to 70s will usually get this angle, which is a 90-degree angle. Now when I hit D, is going to do our dynamic subdiv here. So if I turn off our polyframe here, you can do Shift D and D to toggle that on and off. We can also go to BI brush insert and grab an insert cylinder, or you can go into your custom menu here and just grab an insert cylinder. Since we're just doing DynaMesh, it doesn't really matter what resolution you choose. I'm just going to choose a higher resolution so it smooths. It's fine if you choose 8, 12, 24. It doesn't really matter. We're going to be applying this dynamic subdivision here, so we'll get nice smooth results. I'm also going to hit X to go across X symmetry here, and what that allows me to do, if I snap to the top here, if I hold down Shift and just snap to the top here, and then I go to my brush, insert mesh brush, and then hover over the middle, I can just drag straight out and get a cylinder here. So I'm going to go ahead and do a, well, for you guys, if you don't have a custom menu set up, there's a couple different ways to kind of split this off. Probably the most straightforward way is to do split unmasked points, and now you have your original cylinder and then you have a new cylinder here. This inherited all of the tool settings that you inserted it from. So if you go down here to the crease tolerance, you'll see it's already set at 62. So we'll go ahead and hit crease, and it also has dynamic turned on, so you don't even need to worry about that. Let's hit W here, and we can either scale this in, so we can hit E to go into scale. We can scale this down, and we can move, and we can just kind of push that through there. You can duplicate this on the other side or mirror it on the other side, or you can just hit, let's try this instead. Let's hit W, and then we'll do a non-uniform scale. Just punch that all the way through like so. Now we're going to need to make duplicates of this, so you know, use our trusty transpose, hold down Control Shift and grab that middle one, and that Control will drag off a copy. Control Shift just constrains it to that axis. So we'll go ahead and pull that out here. And if we want to replay that, go up here to your stroke menu, and we're going to go to modifiers, replay last. Now you're going to want to make sure make sure you hold down, oh, it looks like it does it. Sometimes I find I need to hold down Control to get it to do that, but it looks like it's working fine. It just replays the last stroke there, and then in order to punch holes on the other side and offset it, what we're going to do is duplicate. Let's go ahead and unmask. We'll duplicate that subtool here. We'll go down to our deformation menu, and we will just rotate this thing. We'll click the little Y, and we'll rotate it 90 and Y. Now, we are going to have to offset this thing, so we'll go here-ish. I think that'll be fine. And then we can Alt-tap this, and if we're getting a little close to this end, just grab a mask and just pull it this way, and that should be fine. We can slice and clean this stuff up. Speaking of, we can go ahead and polygroup that as well. If we go over here to polygroups, you can do group by normals, and that'll polygroup these ends if you need to use those as a selection. It's kind of up to you. So now that we've got all of this going, I'm going to merge these little cylinders down like so. And now if I was to DynaMesh this right now, in fact, let's do it. Let's turn off project, turn off blur, and actually for you guys, it'll be geometry. DynaMesh. Yeah, turn off project, turn off blur, hit DynaMesh, and when you do that, and you go out of polyframe mode, you're going to see it's faceted. That's because these dynamic subdivisions we have on here, they're not real yet. So go ahead and hit apply. That'll turn it into real subdivisions here. And now when I DynaMesh, it'll go ahead and turn off project, turn off blur. There we go. And now we just DynaMesh this. You can DynaMesh that at whatever resolution you'd like. I'm just looking to get the basic shape because I'm going to be ZBrushing this in a minute. Same thing for this one. We need to go ahead and hit apply, and then we'll turn off project, turn off blur, and DynaMesh that. Cool. And let's go ahead and merge these down. I'm going to click the second icon here, so when I merge this down and control drag, that'll DynaMesh those as a subtractive mesh. Now, of course, a barrel shroud is going to have thickness based on, you know, I'm basically looking just for this shape here. So what I'm going to do is Control-Shift-Click, and we'll go to Select Rectangle. And we'll just isolate this top shape out. And we're going to go ahead and delete Hidden. I'm also going to get rid of these end caps here. So I'm going to hold down Control-Shift. We're going to Slice Curve. And we're just going to slice through. And what that's doing is just basically giving me a polygroup at either end that I can isolate again, do Delete Hidden. Just Geometry, Modify Topology, Delete Hidden. And now we have our overall shape. Just to make sure that this thing gives me a nice smooth circle in the middle here, what we're going to do is go down here to masking, and then we can do mask border, Control tap to invert that, and then we're just going to go to deformation, polish by features. And I kind of round those circles out, and then we're just going to go back up here to geometry. We don't need DynaMesh anymore, and we're going to go to ZRemesher, target polygon count of 5. Let's drop that adaptive size down to like 10. And what adaptive size is going to do is look at the surface variation of your geometry, which in this case shouldn't be much, since it is just a cylinder with holes in it. And that's done. We can kind of look at the result here, and we can just keep hitting half, and that'll go ahead and just, it'll go ahead and build the rings around the circles and make sure that there's enough geometry in here to kind of withhold the surface deformations you're going to need to get it to smooth correctly. If we hit D, there's our dynamic preview here, and it looks like we might need to weld the top points here. Let's go to weld points, and let's change our weld distance up here. There we go. There was a little seam up there, but you can just use weld. And then, of course, if you just want to, you can go into your ZModeler brush, hover over face, QMesh, polygroup all, or extrude all if you'd like. Go ahead and flip, which will be under your display properties, flip here. And then we just do a crease by polygroup. So go back in your creasing menu. There we go. Crease menu, crease polygroup. And now when you hit D for that dynamic preview, it'll go ahead and give you nice round circles and everything's creased. And you can go through here and bevel your creases if you'd like or whatever. But at least, you know, it takes the guesswork out of, you know, getting a cylinder to deform correctly with holes and having to, you know, duplicate and sew a bunch of stuff together, which is totally valid. But it's kind of up to you. That would be the way I would do it, just because. Okay, so we got a couple questions. Thanks for everybody for showing up. I always have problems to make the basic shapes. For example, the basic shape of a car to start with. Panel loop extracts. To get some advice or tips would be nice if you can. Yeah, and then if you're doing panel loops and stuff and refining, you can usually be pretty loose. So if we go over here and we grab a sphere, go X, oh wait, make PolyMesh 3D, hit X to go across X symmetry here, and just really quickly, I'm going to turn this into kind of a lowish res DynaMesh here. And now we can kind of stretch that out. let's see, turn my floor on. Z forward is the little blue line, so I need to swoop it around. So now we can do, so you can make a little car. And actually, let's size that down just a little bit. This will be a all this stuff up here is your deformation, so you can go down here to this area. So yeah, if you're looking for like a basic car shape, then you're going to be cleaning up with panel loops later. There's one basic car shape. And then if you want to, you can actually use H-polish. So let's go ahead and go to slice here. And let's say I want to do a, we'll put like a panel line right through here. And that'll keep it nice and crispy along this way here. So let's go ahead and put in, let's do a slice circle here. And then we'll go ahead and add, I guess that's about right. And then we'll add these two together. So I'm just going to select all those polygroups, hit Control W, and that'll go ahead and give me those shapes there. We can kind of pull these out here. Now when we go to our polish by features, I mean, you can isolate this and ZRemesh it, do whatever you need to. In fact, let's go ahead and put in Windows. Speaking of, if you go to ZBrush Central or the Pixelogic classroom, there's whole tutorials on like how to use panel loops and stuff to make really nice high-tech futuristic cars. I don't remember who does it, but he's really good at doing that stuff. I'm just kind of giving you the my version, which is probably not going to be very good. But this is, we're going to start with our basic shape here. So now if we turn off polyframe, you see the polygroups here, but we're going to go over here to polish by features. If we do close circle, that's going to kind of retain our volume here. If I do open circle, that's going to polish the crap out of this thing. But it's also going to start giving me some very cool shapes here. Oh, looks like we got, did I slice something? Oh, you know what? Feature is not only a polygroup, it's also a crease line, and there might be some weird stuff going on in here too with smoothing these triangles. So what I'm going to do actually is, when we DynaMesh, let's turn, I don't want to do keep groups on. Let's see how far we can get this thing. So let's do polish by features. And let's crank that up because we can always fix that later. And that'll kind of give us some nice smooth shapes to kind of start working with here. In fact, if we don't even need this bottom piece here, because this is going to be the top piece of our car, we can just isolate this, go ahead and delete hidden. And if we need to, we can go ahead and go to geometry, ZRemesher. We'll just do half, adapt the size down to 0. And we can just start getting like nice body lines for our car that we can then go in and slice. Did I turn adapt to size? Yeah, half. There we go. You know, so there's a panel lines for our car here, and then if you want to go in here and ZModeler this stuff to get, say, hold on. There we go. Hold down Alt, and we can just start like painting in, you know, where we would want to go ahead and pop out a window or a door or whatever, or model that in. But probably what I would do, let's go ahead and go back to our original thing here. Let's go ahead and do a slice, and we'll say, front window, back window, and it's so futuristic you're going to have to choose one of those to get into the car. So now I'm just going to go ahead and delete hidden, and now we can go ahead and ZRemesh half. I'll go ahead and give this some panel thickness. And again, we'll go display properties, double flip, and now you can start modeling like that. Obviously that was not the greatest example, but something like that is what I would end up doing. Now, of course, you can sculpt your base shape. You don't have to just pull it into a blob. You can go through an H-polish and trim dynamic and standard brush and clay brush and make a beautiful body for the car if you'd want. And then, you know, mask, ZRemesh, slice, all that good stuff. Hey, everybody. Thanks for showing up. Cool, cool. Thanks for the links. Awesome, awesome. Everybody good? Yes, so Lux has a question here, and this is something, if you go back through the earlier workshops, either, I think both in this channel or my YouTube channel, I have the video on demand backups, but what ends up happening is, good point here, so if I have, what's a recent one that I've done? You know what, let's just load up, I'll load up my other guy, we're doing our other stream here, so stream, Pavlovich mail, iRes, and we'll just load him up here. Give him a second, there we go. And now we can go, let me snag him. So if I have a subtool selected, I can go delete other, and I'm just going to be dealing with him right now. So if we have this guy here, and let's say we're just kind of blocking him out, and so we're going to be in like DynaMesh mode here. There we go. So we're just kind of blocking his body out here, and you're going to notice that his hands are going to be sticking together. So what I usually end up doing, and usually for the face as well, I'll have, and possibly the feet, but I don't worry too much about the feet because I never have characters that run around in sandals or anything. What we can do is, let's go ahead and we're going to slice his head and slice his hand. Now, the slice isn't going to go through, and actually let's tap Alt once so we can kind of just slice his hand without slicing through his body here. Slice isn't going to be mirrored, so what I'm going to do is do a quick mirror, and weld. For you guys, that'll be under deformation, mirror, and then geometry, modify topology, mirror, and weld. Now with that, what I can do is go ahead and Control-Shift select the body, we'll do split hidden, and now we've got his body separated, and this thing, I can just go ahead, it still has DynaMesh, so I can just DynaMesh his body. And now this can be at a separate resolution, and I know that I can go ahead and DynaMesh all this stuff later. I don't have to work on the whole thing as one piece, and in fact I prefer doing this because I'll work at the body at a lower resolution, and then the head and the hands will be working higher, just because there's usually more visual interest in the hands. Or, you know, it doesn't have to be the head, it can be a bust shape if you want. And the hands will be a completely separate thing. Number one, because, you know, DynaMeshing in this resolution while you're working is going to cause this. And number two, sometimes the hands need a little bit more love. So what we can do is, let's do this. Let's go ahead and delete the head and the hands here. So I'm working on the body. I'm going to go to Brush, Insert, Body Parts here. And we're going to grab him. You know what? Let's make it interesting. Let's grab him a dog head here. And if you wanted to go ahead and add a neck for him, one thing you can try and do is, if we go into our polyframe here, you're going to see we have a polygroup up here. Now, because we sliced him, I think those are going to be the same polygroups. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is isolate that. We're going to do a quick auto groups, so polygroups, auto groups, and then we'll do another quick mirror and weld, geometry, modify topology, mirror and weld. And now what I can do, let's see if that dog head has a hole in the back, because if it has a hole in the back, we can, I'm pretty sure it does. If we drag over a polygroup, see that hole right there? And we move this up here, and then we turn off DynaMesh, and we control drag again, it'll go ahead and sew up. That's called the kind of mesh fusion type thing that they have built into ZBrush. It'll go ahead and sew up that transition here, so we can go ahead and modify this. Now you can always turn DynaMesh back on, and there you go. Now we wanted to work on the head separately, so I'm going to again isolate that head. We'll go ahead and grab the neck as well. We'll go ahead and split hidden. Now this inherited the 296 resolution. Let's crank that up to like 552. DynaMesh that. Now I'm working at the head at a higher resolution. This one I'm just working at whatever. And then we'll go to Brush, Insert, Body Parts again, M, Hand. And now we've got hands here. I'm going to go ahead and do a split mask point. So that's going to be split over here in your subtool menu. And we can rotate this around. Now, for this one in particular, it's already got pretty decent geometry to sculpt on, so I don't even need to DynaMesh this thing. All I have to do is, you know, turn on, go to geometry here. You can hit Control D or hit this divide, and that'll go ahead and start dividing this geometry up. So you can work at this resolution, or you can, again, DynaMesh it at a higher resolution if you'd like, and just go through here and start sculpting. Make sure that's off, yeah. So we can go through here and start cleaning this up. Let's go ahead and do an inflate on these fingers. And that's another thing too, is if you inflate these fingers and then DynaMesh them, it might be a little scary. One thing you can do, hit R and Control drag, And now you can go through here, you can kind of move these things out, or if you want to change, this is what I usually end up doing, is like changing a little bit of the bending to kind of get, and you don't have to do that, you can also hold down Control, go into lasso, and see if you can snag that here. You can Control tap to kind of blur that mask out a little bit, and then you can drag in your little transpose bone, like so, and kind of just start bending this stuff around. But long story short, you can work on these separately from the head, separately from the body, and then as the body, you continue to refine it and add resolution. Whenever you get to a high enough resolution, you can merge all these things together. And let's pretend this is a really nice sculpting job and we're at a high resolution. We can go ahead and DynaMesh all this stuff together. And now when I DynaMesh, there's not a lot of webbing in here because we're at a higher resolution and everything's at the same level. And then you can go ahead and smooth the transitions between here, sculpt this out, make it nice. And then I'm not going to go into this one, but we also go into in the earlier workshops where we rebuild on both my channel and Pixelogic's, where we put in a mouth bag, we use ZRemesher and Projectol to get nice geometry, get subdivision history, get our details back, get a nicer sculpting surface. Not that DynaMesh isn't nice, but it's nice to be able to go back through your subdivision history sometimes and just keep working from there. Pretty good. And if you're new to ZBrush and all of this is just kind of weird to even listen to or think about, go to the Pixelogic website and you can download a free trial and give it a shot. They have a Z Classroom videos that'll walk you through ZBrush. You can go to my YouTube channel and it's got Intro to ZBrush Part 1. It's like 5 hours worth of video you can go through, and it'll get you kind of up and running and acclimated to the interface and the processes and all that stuff. Yep, there you go. Cool. The Z Classroom here. To think that a merge visual mesh multiple parsers. Okay, so the question is, how can I trick any baker to think that a merge visual mesh with multiple parts from ZBrush to bake as one mesh and ignore the intersection of parts as one mesh? And you don't want to DynaMesh together to destroy any details. I don't do a lot of baking on this channel. We do a little bit of ZBrush baking with, let's see, yeah, and with using ZBrush's baker, it's not an arbitrary mesh thing. You have to have subdivision history and you bake from your low res to your high res cage, or your low res subdivision. But that would be under the multi-map exporter here is one way to do it. As far as just like exporting stuff, we did a ton of that. Let me see if I still have those. Cancel that. Oh, I don't. Give me a second. Give me a second here. Let's see. Go to my... So what we did was we made a bunch of these little robot guys in ZBrush, and then we exported out of ZBrush using the FBX exporter, and then we baked them in Substance Painter. You could do the same thing in XNormal, Marmoset, whatever baking you want to use, or Maya, Max Mode, it doesn't matter. The reason I do that is because ZBrush makes it really easy to, you know what, let's just load one up. If I can remember where they are. Yeah, they're in here. Let's do Beerbot, the one we haven't finished yet. Let's do Ernie. Cool. So here's that robot. And he's got a lot of different parts in here. He's got 35 different subtools here. And what you would basically do is, let's see if we got one. This is supposed to be the big file, but it doesn't look like it is. Let's go grab salt here. There we go. So I basically did a merge visible and just went ahead and color fill, which is going to be under here, color fill object. And then anything you want to bake together, like let's say I wanted to bake all this stuff together, just do Control-Shift-A. I just Control-Drag it, Control-Shift-A. If I don't want the shoulders, I can just Control-Shift-Tap those. If I want to bake the handle separately, I can get rid of that, but this is fine. Let's go ahead and split that. So basically, all of these things, they're a bunch of separate pieces here. You know, the handle's separate from the little back plate, which is separate from the body, which is separate from this thing. If I go ahead and name this body, and actually, let me just go ahead and link you guys while we're here. Let's see, videos. I mean, I can actually do just, you know what? Let's just do it. What's the big deal? So let's go ahead and bake this guy off as separate pieces here. So, and this is just going to be one example of a million different ways you could do this here. And I'm going to simplify this one. Like in reality, I would break this thing up in a lot more different ways. But let's just go ahead and say, let's select lasso here, and we'll also go across the X symmetry here. So I'm going to grab all of this, let's say, and we'll go ahead and split that off. And I'm going to grab all of this, let's say, split that off. Now, you know, I could grab, and I grabbed, you know, every single one of these little joints and bake them separately. But just for speed purposes, I'm going to, again, I'm just grabbing a little piece and then doing Control-Shift-A, which is under Visibility, Grow All here. So that's just the shortcut key, and it's just an easier way. Instead of trying to go through here and seeing if if we go back to select rectangle, instead of going back through here and like doing all this stuff and trying to grab it, it's just sometimes easier to just select lasso and go, there we go, Control-Shift-A, split hidden. So now we've got a few different pieces here. So I'm going to go back through here. I'm going to select this top one here. We'll rename this one body. Oops. Body, and then I'm going to do Control or Shift Alt to do the underscore, Shift Alt underscore high, and we're going to go to the arms here, high, hands, and then this middle piece here. And now that I have that, if I want to export all of these, and again, it's going to export these as separate pieces, and you could get as detailed as you want, and it'll bake, in the case of Painter, it'll bake it all to one mesh, depending on, you know, however they're named. In fact, you could even go even more granular in this, and I hope this makes sense, where I could name, you know, if I wanted to not merge together all this stuff, I could go back through every single one of these subtools and name it. And then if I want two separate pieces to go together, like say I wanted this to go together with this, what I'd basically do is name this one like hands underscore high underscore knuckles, and then I would name this, or they would name this one hands underscore high underscore knuckles. I would name this one's hands underscore high underscore fingers, and when Painter goes to bake this, it would look at hands underscore high, and it would go, okay, everything that's named hands underscore high is going to be baked to my hands underscore low, and your hands underscore low could be both of these things put together, but the high reses is going to group together so that it bakes them all together. And of course, you can have as many high reses or as many low reses as you want. You just want to make sure you name them correctly. And then you want to go to your Z plugin here, FBX exporter, and then you just do an export visible, and that would go ahead and export all of these things. And basically FBX, in this case, how we're using it is kind of just a wrapper. Instead of doing an OBJ, which is just one file, and FBX will export all of this with your color information, your vertex color, and then pack it into a little wrapper that has all of your objects, and they're all named correctly. You would make your low res, you would bake high to low, and it would do it all separately. So, oh yeah, I don't know if you guys want to go through that whole process today, but if you want to see me do it a bunch of different times, if you go to this playlist here, this is my Twitch TV playlist, and scroll down and you'll see robot baking a bunch of different ways. This is a question, ZBrush better with a tablet? Yeah, ZBrush is definitely, it's really difficult. I mean, sometimes they'll use a mouse for ZModeler stuff, which for y'all would be, let's do a cylinder 3D, make PolyMesh 3D. So sometimes, you know, and not that I always use that, but if I do like here and then hover over face and we'll do delete, and then we want to like bridge two holes and we'll select this edge and pull this out. So like this is ZModeler stuff. Occasionally it's a little bit easier for me to kind of use my mouse over here for ZModeler. But if you're doing any sort of sculpting or yeah, any sort of refinement, trying to go on here, let's go across X symmetry here, trying to do any sort of sculpt refine with just a mouse or something, because the mouse is basically 100% pressure sensitivity, whereas with a tablet I can go thick to thin, back to thin here, and I can kind of like just lightly touch, or I can heavily touch, and it'll do a lot of different effects. And I get this a lot too, where people will be trying to use H-polish, which H-polish, if I go ahead and pull this out, and then we'll do a DynaMesh here. So let's say we wanted to kind of really sharpen up this surface here. So go into your H-polish brush, that'll be like BH, and then you can polish this down to a flat surface. You can hold down Alt and polish it up. If you're using your mouse and trying to like get this to work, it's gonna do this, just because it's kind of one of those, you gotta get a feel for it. You know, there's got to be a little pressure sensitivity here, so it's really difficult to maneuver some of these brushes without pressure sensitivity, because again, you know, here's me using the standard brush. Let's go ahead and turn off, tap L to turn off lazy radius here. So if I using the standard brush here, I can go like, I can kind of feather it in, and I can kind of just use different pressure sensitivities. If I use my mouse, it's just always on or always off. You know, there's no, oh, let me start small and go big. Nope. It's as if, and in fact, if you want to do that with your pen, you can go over here to your preferences, I think, tablet. No, I mean, you might be able to do it in there. What I was thinking of though is going in here to your brush tablet pressure. You can go into size, and you can just crank this up, and that'll make it, you know, 100% all the time. And I think intensity as well. Just crank this up, and then your intensity will just be flat, like like you're using your mouse. And then of course you can go back in here. And so H-polish respects edges here, so you can kind of polish up to a nice crispy edge. But if you want to bevel this and you're sculpting, not using ZModeler or anything, then you would go in here with Trim Dynamic, and that'll just trim these edges down. And then if you wanted to clean up these edges, you could go back in, because now that you've introduced more edges to your sculpt, you can then go back in and clean this up using H-polish. Like so. We'll grab our H-polish brush, and then you can go back in here and use polish to kind of polish these flat surfaces, and then respect the edge here, and then you can go through here and kind of move this around as needed. Cool, cool. If the mesh has subdivision, you can't mirror and weld, and you don't have to freeze and rebuild. I'll show you a way that might be a little bit easier than that. Let's go ahead. Okay, we'll do a quick thing here. So I'm going to duplicate this guy off, and we're going to ZRemesh him. He's looking kind of cool. I like that character. So what we're going to do is go into ZRemesh here. So geometry, ZRemesher. We'll do adaptive size at like 10. If we want more resolution in the body, what we can do is say use poly paint. And then if this is set to color density of 2, let's set that to like 1.5. And let's go ahead and just paint, whoops, turn on RGB for your standard brush here. And we'll go ahead and paint his hands at 1.5. And if we want a little more resolution in his face, and maybe his ears, we'll go ahead and paint those in. If you want less resolution, change it to like 0.25. Let's do that here. Let's go like to 0.75. And we'll say, you know what, we don't want any resolution in his feet. Good enough. You can also use control curves here, but I don't really care that much to find out all that stuff. So what I'm going to do is, and you can also use poly groups to maintain borders that you need. But we'll keep it simple here. So what we're going to do is ZRemesh adaptive size down to like say 10. Use poly paint, and we'll say target polygon count of 5 is fine. And so we're going to do, do we have X turned on? I guess we'll see. If you have X turned on, it'll automatically do symmetry down the middle, or across whichever axis of symmetry you have selected in your transform menu up here, I should say. So, and we do. If you don't like that midline, you can hold down Alt and hit ZRemesher, and it'll use a different algorithm to give you a different midline, but I think that's looking pretty good. If you want, you can also, you know, hit half and hit ZRemesh, but honestly, I think that topology was fine. Yeah, let's just keep this one. This topology is great. So now what we can do, if we want all that detail back, which we don't have a lot of, but just in case, if you got both of these subtools showing here, you can go into your subtool project, and you can project one subtool to another, or one subtool to several different subtools. So you can hit project all, and then hit Control D, which will give you geometry, divide, subdivision history, and then we'll hit project all, Control D, project all, and then we're just getting our detail back to our ZRemesh mesh. So if we go into solo mode here, here's our one with subdivisions, here's our original, don't need the original anymore, and now we have one that has subdivision history, so we can step down, make changes, and then step up. So now we have a mesh here, and let's say we forget we have X symmetry turned on, and then we're sculpting over here, and we totally forgot that as we're sculpting over here, we don't have X symmetry on. And then you go back out here and realize, let's make it a little more obvious than that. It's like, oh, I really wish this was over here now, and now it's, you know, not in symmetry. If you go down here to the deformation, there's going to be a Smart Resim button, and you know, you can Smart Resim across any axis. We'll keep it on X. And one thing I would do, I mean, you can just mask out, you know, turn off X. Let's go to hold down Control, and we're going to do mask pin. There we go. So we can just mask out the side you want to keep. Let's say we like that bump, and then do a Smart Resim across the X, and now you can turn on X symmetry, and you still have subdivision levels. And it's symmetrical. Now, if there's a ton of different things that you've done on one side, what I would suggest doing, and it'll be a little bit more accurate, I think, is step down to subdivision level 1, and let's turn off perspective here. We'll mask out the side we like without X on, because we're basically protecting the side that we like, and then the side that we want to change, we're going to leave unmasked, which kind of makes sense. So we're going to mask one half of it, subdivision level 1, and we're going to hit Smart Resim. And then we're going to step up 1, and let's go ahead and just redraw our mask down the middle here. And then we'll do Smart Resim, and then I'm going to step up 1 here, and then do Smart Resim. The only reason I say doing that is sometimes, if you have a really high density mesh and you just go all the way to subdivision level 7 and do a Smart Resim, it might not be as accurate as if you step up through the subdivision levels, and it also might take longer because it's having to evaluate millions and millions of polygons as opposed to you know, stepping through incrementally through your subdivision levels. Yeah, Yara, did you? Well, okay, so two questions. The gun barrel thing, this thing we did here, that was the first thing I did. And that was basically DynaMesh, and then just grabbing the extraneous geo, doing a little bit of polish, and letting DynaMesh do the heavy lifting. So if you do dynamic sub D, you can see it'll kind of smooth it correctly for me. The underscore, it's on the Mac, I don't know. I haven't used a Mac since I played Oregon Trail, but on the computer here, it's Alt-Shift and then underscore, and that kind of, so if I want to rename this thing, we'll do shroud Alt-Shift underscore high, and that'll go ahead and it'll rename your first word to a capitalized 2, but that's usually okay. Yeah, and so Lux, I hope that made sense. Whenever we, you know, you sculpt on the hand separately, and then when you get high enough resolution here, when you DynaMesh it together, then they won't get stuck together. Because see how close these fingers are? And there we go. And then when we DynaMeshed them together to get rid of the seam, and then we ZRemeshed it, we were able to not get any webbing, and those fingers are super close. So that made sense. That's a good point. So Mortar brings up, if you have, let's look at DynaMesh this thing back. So we'll DynaMesh things. We'll lose our subdivision history here. If you do have your fingers in separate polygroups here, so we'll just do this. We'll hit Control W, which will give us a polygroup here. And let's do hold down R, or tap R and then hold down. We'll just mask this out and then invert that mask, Control W. If you have groups turned on with your DynaMesh, it will DynaMesh them as separate objects. You will have to be careful though. You're probably going to want to do like an auto groups, or just if I grab these ones and then do Control Shift A, you're going to see there's a polygroup at the back here when it DynaMesh and close the holes. So what I would do is hit Control W, do Control Shift A, Control W, and now just make those all separate. So as you're DynaMeshing with groups turned on, it'll keep it as a separate object. So if we go to Brush, Insert, Cylinder here, here's a separate object, separate polygroup. We Control drag again, and now it's a DynaMesh object. But in fact, if we go over here to Brush, and we'll use Auto Masking, Mask by Polygroups up to 100, we can just pull that out. And it's still DynaMesh, it's still a separate object. It won't DynaMesh things together, but it will DynaMesh them as the same subtool. So you can do that, but just remember it is a separate object. And then eventually you will have to DynaMesh these things together. So that's why I usually just stick with a hand that's at a higher resolution, sculpt it all together. There won't be any seams you have to sculpt across, because if you do want to sculpt across these two separate things, if you smooth, and let's turn off Mask by Polygroups. If you smooth across here, it's going to do that. If you standard brush across here, let's go ahead and turn on Z-Add. It'll do some weird stuff. Clay brush usually works okay across seams, but it's just more trouble than I'm used than is worth dealing with fingers. So I would still suggest doing the low, subdivide up high, and then when you DynaMesh it all together at a higher resolution, Z-remesh your body back, and you should be good to go. How would you create damage in clothing, like tearing holes with wires, etc.? That would just be a simple matter of creating the clothing, which if you're good at cloth sculpting, do that. I'm terrible at it, so I usually use a third-party program for cloth. And then bringing it in, you can Z-remesh it, and then just poke holes in it, and then subdivide. You can give it cloth thickness if you'd like. And then I don't do a lot of torn clothing, but in my brain it seems like, or you could just do, let's do this. Let's go X here. So we'll go, let's just do an extraction real quick. So I'm going to go over here to extract here. That's fine. We'll go ahead and hit accept. So we'll take this one here. I'm just going to take this top layer here, and we're going to go to, let's delete hidden, and then we'll just do a Z-remesher half, adaptive size down to 0. Now we want to poke holes in this thing. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to be like, here's a hole, here's a hole, here's a long hole, and then isolate that, delete hidden, go through here, QMesh polygroup all, give it some thickness, flip it if you need to, and then when you divide this thing up, let's go into our remove brush here, and then it would just be like, and you could do holes along the bottom too if you wanted to. It'll be like tattered clothing. And if you ever get to the point where it's like, you know what, I made a lot of changes, I wish, always remember, you can just go back here, delete hidden, and let's go ahead and delete lower. We'll go ahead and we'll Z-remesh this thing at the same, and it'll go ahead and build in all those changes that you made. Let's go ahead and delete hidden, there we go. Same, poly count, save my project file, there you go. And now we've got new holes built in, and then you can just go back in here, and this time we'll do an extrude all polygons just to get thickness. And I'm pulling back, which is flipping the normals. If you pull forward, it won't. And now you can just start subdividing this up and sculpting in. Let's turn lazy mouse back on. Start sculpting in your cloth, stuff like this, I guess. I mean, I'm sure there's other ways to do tears. If it was on the person like this, then let's go ahead and we'll move this back onto his body here. So if anything's close, which clothing usually is, if you want to make it look tattered and you're going to bake it off anyways, you can always just go in here and just push it back underneath the mesh. So on DC Universe, I usually ended up doing that. Just it's simpler, like Killer Croc and stuff is like, yeah, I'm just gonna put a pair of pants on him if I want tatters. Then if you want like strings through here, let's go ahead and we'll subdivide that up. So when you do push something back, you can always go back in here, and you can add another subtool for this, or let's go ahead and build this back up with clay brush here. Also, when you're working on very thin meshes, you want to make sure, like if we start using clay brush on this thing here, it's going to really start pulling forward. So what you want to do is go over here to your auto masking, turn on back face, and now it'll only pull up on that front face. It'll leave this alone. Just thin mesh stuff you got to deal with here. So if we have that there, go out of solo mode, and now you can kind of push this back, and then through here you can kind of add, there's not a whole lot of resolution on this thing, you can kind of add gene, you know, when you tear up genes and get holes in them, they'll have like little threads in between. You can make those, again, you can make those a separate subtool, you can do a mask and extract, you can do a topology brush, BTO, and you can go through here and be like, I want, okay, we'll select this one then, you know, and we'll turn off X. There we go. So it's like, I want to have a separate mesh in here. That's fine. Just tap that off and go ahead and split mask points, and then just shove this back. And now you have a separate mesh you can sculpt on. If you want to add like threads, you can do Nanomesh. So many different ways to do that. And again, I don't do it a lot, but just off the top of my head, those would be, oh, and if you want to get rid of this curve, just delete that curve. Cool. Yeah, dog head to the body. Let's make him even cooler. So what we're going to do is slice curve here. Control W, we're going to slice his head off. Control Shift, and we're going to do a split hidden. And then we're going to scooch this one over. And if I DynaMesh this one, it should still have, yeah, it's still DynaMesh, so all I have to do is Control Drag. It'll go ahead and do that. And then we can go back to the body here, and go to Brush, Insert, Body Parts here, and we'll go ahead and grab a head here. There's two. Let's just grab one. And there you go. You can just drag that out. Or you can, you know, if you have scan data or you have a head, you can just append it, like load the tool up and append it. Now if we do a split mask points here and then Control Drag, that'll go ahead and DynaMesh this head. And if you want to DynaMesh these together, it's just a simple matter of merging all these together and then DynaMeshing. And now they're all in the, you know, of course you'd probably want to do it a little bit cleaner than this, but just for quick and dirty purposes, I'm just going to go through here and inflate, DynaMesh. And if it ever does that, sometimes what you got to do, sometimes it'll like find little holes in here. So kind of just smoothing down maybe in the problem inflation areas that might be having a little bit of trouble, or sometimes it's dropping your resolution a bit. We'll kind of mitigate that. There's some weirder stuff. Oh, and you know what? Turn off groups. That's probably what was doing it. I forgot I had groups turned on when we were doing the fingers. There we go. So now the little heads are together. You got a little mutant thing going. And if I miss your questions, I'm trying to go through and hit everything. But if I miss it, just repeat it, and I'll grab it back. I never mean to do that. Oh, and yeah, as far as like attaching an open hole, I forgot we did that. So basically, what that is, and that's just a feature of here. So if you do make a mask, Control W, and then if you've ever noticed, you go to Brush, Insert, and you see these things that say Insert H cube and Insert H sphere. That basically means there's a hole on it. So any subtool with a hole on it that you drag out on a polygroup, and you can pull this back as far as you want. You don't have to pull it back if you don't want to, but just make sure DynaMesh is off, and then when you Control Drag again, it'll go ahead and build in the bridge in here. In this case, since it's such high resolution, it does a fine job, but that's really where it comes in handy a lot. If we take a lower res cylinder here, make Polymesh 3D, and then we go through here and Control W here, and then we go to Brush, Insert H Sphere. We'll move that out. Again, make sure DynaMesh is off, and then I'll go ahead and bridge those two. Cool. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, and then if you do have, this guy has quite a bit of history on him. You do have this little history slider up here, so you can kind of scrub back through, and you can actually play this as a movie. It's been a while since I've done it, but if you go to movie here, I think you can do a history, a forward, you can do a backward history, a forward history movie, and it'll actually go through and play your history and kind of like move the camera based on preferences that you set in here, I believe. Again, there's better tutorials on that stuff. I don't think I've ever made one. I remember doing it, but it's been a long time. Cool, cool, cool. I have several weaknesses. And you can use, if you want to nicely close the holes, you can use the close holes function. That'll work if you have, it won't work that well on like a flat plane. So if we have this thing here, let's see, Alt. And by the way, I'm Alt tapping, or I should be. There we go. We can Alt tap here. We can hold down Control Shift. If I grab close holes, you know, if I have this top one here, we'll do delete hidden. Let's see. Delete lower, delete hidden. If I run a close holes operation on here, it's like, oh, it closed the holes, and it'll close any border holes as well. So it'll close this back border here. So that's a hole, and then all these front holes here. So if you want to separate those into separate holes, what you can do is just do polygroups, auto groups, and now these all have their own separate. So yeah, it'll close this hole, and it also close the back hole. So you'll want to, if you want to get rid of that, you can. And there's a couple, you know, it doesn't do it, I don't know, it finds the border edges and closes the holes. So yeah, you could, yeah, when you were doing this thing, you can close holes and it'll kind of run operations on any of your open borders. Cool, cool. And yeah, they're talking about ZBrush Core on the chat here. You know, on the Pixelogic Z Classroom, obviously, and I also have a ZBrush Core, intro to ZBrush Core on my channel. I don't use ZBrush Core that much because I'm always in here in ZBrush, but ZBrush Core is a really cool program if you want like a ZBrush Lite and you want to just get in and start sculpting cool stuff. That could be a much cheaper alternative if you're up to that. Okay, so Axel says it would be cool if DynaMesh and ZBrush would be able to ignore a masked area, just like affecting a portion of the tool and arranging a bridge with the masked one. I think I want to say, well, maybe I'm thinking of decimate, because you can mask areas of your mesh and then decimate, and it will respect your masking. ZBrush, you can use polypaint to dictate resolution on your ZBrush, but it's not really like, it won't just leave it alone. You can, okay, let's do that. There's a couple of tricky things you can do. Let's load up. Let's go to tool here, and we'll use our dog example. So if we have this dog here, we'll do Control Shift and we'll slice that leg there. I think you can do visibility. So if you go here with this visible and then you go to ZBrush, you can say, you know what, I want to ZBrush this half, and then I'll ZBrush that down and leave the rest of it alone. So that's one thing you can kind of do. Kind of look like it pinched that end there. I wonder if there's, okay, so half. Oh, keep groups, take your smooth groups down to 0, and now ZBrush half with the groups on, and it shouldn't smooth that. You can also freeze border. That'll keep your border vertices the same, but then you can isolate this. Let's do both of these. Keep groups, freeze border, half, ZBrush. Yeah, okay, and then so it will ZBrush this thing and freeze your border and leave the rest of your object alone, so you can use visibility to ZBrush parts. That's okay, Thomas. Do what you need to do. Yeah, ZBrush can ignore hidden areas, so yeah, you can use visibility to kind of do that. Yeah, and decimation will support masks, but not DynaMesh. So, yeah, so if you're decimating this thing, decimate this thing down, we can go ahead and mask this area. And I think also, speaking of decimation, I don't do it very much as far as these options, but you can do, if you pre-process and decimate this down, you can also go under your, use and keep poly paint. So, and if you hover over anything in ZBrush, it'll show up a little help menu. If you hold down Control, it'll give you even more help sometimes. But keeps poly painting and takes care of the colors in the decimation process. So if you have a very detailed poly paint, or you have very specific areas poly painted and you decimate, it will actually, and you have that turned on, it'll go ahead and keep the nice poly painted areas higher resolution to maintain your poly paint, and then decimate areas that just have flat colors, stuff like that. And then Thomas says about masking with Decimation Master, mask at 100% will keep all the polygons in the zone, and then less polygons available for the area you're decimating, which makes sense. And I think also, if I hold down Control and turn RGB intensity down, you can actually like do lighter math. So if it's not at 100%, maybe it'll decimate more or less in those areas if it's on or off, that kind of thing. Yes, masking intensity will protect more or less. 50% mask will protect 50%. Yeah, so you can turn your RGB intensity down, and then that'll just mask at, here's 34% like this, and then it'll just do a 34% decimation based on your overall number. A lot of math. So Blend says, I was doing Stitch It with the Insert Multi-Mesh brush, perfect, grounded on clothing, but when I use a frame curve to follow the border, in the x-axis it fits the mesh, but in Z and Y don't fit the stitches. Whenever I'm doing a frame mesh, I turn X off, so let's go ahead and frame the mesh on here. So we're going to go through here, and we're going to slice here, and we're going to slice here. So if I want to frame all of these things, what I need to do is go up here to Stroke, and we're going to go to Frame a Polygroups border, and then I'll go ahead and frame this. And then we can go to Brush, Curve. If we do Curve Tube, you can do Curve Multi-Tube. So we go to B, C, M, Curve Tube, there's Curve Multi-Tube, and that'll do all of them. Now if we have X turned on, for example, it's going to put multiple overlapping versions of that, and it'll frame them all, but sometimes it's easier just to do Brush Curve Tube, and that'll just do one, and then you can go over here to your, let's drag our stroke palette over here. You're going to see that the snapshot is 5, the 5 key, so you can hit 5 and then tap this one back here, and then that'll go ahead and frame any open curves you have. So that's one way to do it. But if we do it that way, and we tap off on our object here, and we'll do a split mask points, and we do an auto groups, you're going to see we have 2 overlapping areas here. So I'm just going to go, you can go delete hidden, and now you're back to 1. But yeah, when I'm framing a mesh, let's go ahead and delete that subtool here. There we go. So yeah, we'll do the framing again. So again, we're going to go up here, over here to our stroke menu. We'll frame our polygroup mesh. We're going to go to B, C, Curve Tube, and I'm going to turn off X symmetry so it doesn't give us 2 overlapping ones. We can tap here. If we want to make that smaller, we can make our brush size smaller. And that my brush size, not when it's blue. When it's blue, that's just manipulating your curve. When it's red, that's going to indicate, I'm just tapping S, by the way, to get that brush size. If you hit spacebar, you'll get draw size and a bunch of other stuff. But if you tap S, that'll give you draw size. You can make that bigger or smaller. And then you can hit 5 to do a snapshot, and then tap back here. and then tap off to get rid of your curve, and then you can just isolate these two here. And there you go. Should work pretty good, if that makes sense. Paint Stop. Difference in Polypaint. Paint Stop's a plugin that if you go to the downloads page on Pixelogic's channel, you can download Paint Stop and use it. It's been a really long time since I've used that, but it's just like a paint program that's built within ZBrush. And if you go back to the earlier workshop stuff, you'll also have in here, if I'm thinking of the right thing, in here there's Quick Sketch as well if you hit that button. And for you guys, Quick Sketch will probably be over here somewhere. I had to move it because I kept hitting it accidentally. But if we tap Quick Sketch, that basically sets up a polyplane that we can, let's turn off polyframe here, that we can go through here and start drawing here. So if we go in here and we'll turn on RGB for our standard brush, and then everything that you do in ZBrush, in fact, if we go to transform X and Y, we can do X and Y symmetry. We can do radial symmetry instead. Let's go ahead and take our transform menu over here. We'll do Z radial count. You can do radial symmetry up to 100 if you want, or down to like the 20s. You can do all sorts of cool stuff. But yeah, if you just wanted to like draw or paint in symmetry, go back through my earlier videos. Let's go ahead and do a square alpha. So you can go through here and do just painting. You can hit C to sample. So you can do sample colors, and again, the RGB intensity, you can drop that down, crank it up. You can hold down Shift, turn off Z add, and you can actually go through here and blur, because you know, you can smooth out transitions here. You can choose different colors. You can kind of build these up, and then we've done lots of painting before. And you don't have to use Quick Sketch if you don't want to. All it is doing is just taking out some of the grunt work. But if you just want to do it manually, just drag out a polyplane here, and then if you open, is that the polyplane it made? If we do initialize, there we go. So there's our square one here, and then H divides and V divides. It actually made the polyplane fit our document, which is nice. It won't do square automatically if you just grab a polyplane, but say you did. You can do 60 by 60, and then go ahead and make a PolyMesh 3D. It went ahead and chose flat color material for us. And again, you can skip all this if you don't want to deal with doing this manually. Go into geometry, turn off the smooth modifier to keep your corners nice and crispy. Divide this up as many times as you want in order to get the resolution that you need. And then we're going to go to with the white color, or if you don't want to do a slight gray, just do color fill object. Change your RGB intensity in this case up to 100 for now. And then you can drop your RGB intensity down when you start painting. And then you can turn on X. You can add alphas in here, like so. You can also do like a drag rect with, you know, any alphas you want to import. We've gone over this, and then you can also change your focal shift to get those nice and painted up. Paint stop. Yeah. Let's see here. You can hide the, yeah, sometimes I will grab accidentally an undo history in here. You can go to preferences, undo history, whoops, and you can say show it or don't show it. So if you turn it off, you can just get rid of it. That might be safer. Yeah, let's do a gun barrel real quick. And again, there's several different ways to do the barrel shroud like we were talking about earlier. So we go to cylinder here, and we'll go to matte cap gray. So we have a poly, this is just a regular old cylinder here. You can go to initialize and change any of these options that you want. I'll keep them as they are. I'll make a PolyMesh 3D. We'll hit W. We'll tap here to find that surface normal here. Give it a second. There we go. Actually, you know what? Let's do a preferences initialize and get rid of some of this stuff in here. There we go. Okay, yeah, so select here. We'll grab a cylinder real quick. Go to matte cap gray, hit W, make PolyMesh 3D, hit W, and then we're going to hold down Shift and grab this inner circle. We're just going to do a non-uniform scale on that one. Now at this point you could initialize this and give it the correct number of spans, go through here and do some sort of like, just to kind of give you a taste of doing it the other way. So if we do, I'm just going to get rid of these end caps here, we'll go ahead and delete hidden. You can go through here and do insert, we'll do polyloop, polygroup here, and you could just, you know, if you tap and then tap Alt, you can get alternating things on here, and then you can go into Nanomesh and do a fill with a plane that has a circle. We kind of went over this in earlier workshops. And you can do offsetting by, you know, 1, and then you can do a bunch of welding to get, you know, planes with circles in them welded together. But for my money, what I would prefer to do is do this, and then you can go to Brush, BI, Brush Insert, grab the Insert Cylinder, or if you have your own custom menu, you can just grab a cylinder here, and then if we hit X symmetry here, that'll give us the 2 dots on both sides. And if you go to the middle, you can just drag out a cylinder like this. Let's go ahead and grab there we go. Okay, so now we have a cylinder on here, so I'm going to hit E, and that'll be scale. We can scale this down to whatever size we want our holes. And let's go ahead and, there we go. If we want to poke it all the way through, we can do that. Let's go ahead and just do, again, another non-uniform scale here. I'll poke it all the way through. And then if we want to drag out a copy of this, just hold down Control-Shift and drag out. And then you can do stroke replay last, which is 1. You can just the 1 key, and that'll go ahead and replay last. And now that we have that, let's go ahead and Control-Shift tap these cylinders here. Or if you can just grab the tops of them and then do Control-Shift A. We can do a split hidden. And then with this one, we can duplicate that off. And then we can go down here to deformation, and we can rotate this in the Y 90 degrees. Now if you want to offset these, you just got to move it over a bit. And if you want to encapsulate all of these here, we'll just do another non-uniform scale on this thing. Now, basically what I'm doing is I want to get this outer shape and then let ZBrush do the heavy lifting for me, right? In order to get this to smooth correctly, if I hit D, and that's the dynamic preview we were talking about earlier, that's going to kind of, you know, these edges are getting average. So what we're going to do is just go in here to crease, drag your crease tolerance down and hit crease. You can do the exact same thing for this, or you could even go into your polygroups, group by normals, and that'll give you different polygroups based on the normal angle of the object. And then you could go into your crease menu and do a crease PG, crease your polygroup here, and you can hit Control W if you want to make those all one polygroup again. And now when I hit D on that one, it's nice and smooth. For this one, we'll just do a crease tolerance here, crease, dynamic, and we're good to go. Now, if I take this one and then I do DynaMesh, which for you guys will be under the geometry DynaMesh menu here. I'm just going to use my custom one. Turn off project, turn off blur, hit DynaMesh. You're going to see it brings the faceting back, and that's because when we DynaMeshed, it didn't see our dynamic here. It just saw this. The dynamic isn't real. It's just a preview until you hit apply, and then it applies actual subdivision levels. And now when you DynaMesh this thing together, let's crank that resolution up just a little bit. There we go. And we just DynaMesh without freezing our subdivision levels. I don't need any of that. Same thing for these ones here. Let's go ahead and merge these down. So I've got my 2 cylinder groups here. We'll just merge those down. Turn off project, turn off blur. We'll DynaMesh those. Give it a second to catch up here. And what I'm basically going to do is use these crossbars as a subtractive mesh on my my cylinder here, and then grab this top piece here. Whoops, forgot to apply that. Turn off project, turn off blur, DynaMesh. There we go. I'm going to move, see this little bent arrow down, I move these cylinders below, and then I can choose subtractive mesh. So now when I go through, I can just merge this one down, which is merge down here. And I got a hotkey for that, Control drag. And that's just going to give me this shape. And it went ahead and gave me nice little polygroups for those interior edges, so I can Control Shift, isolate this one, delete hidden. And I'm going to slice these ends off as well. So I'm going to hold down Control Shift, go to Slice Curve, And we don't need these end caps, so I'm just going to slice those, which is going to give me polygroups for those. Control-Shift, tap the main polygroup, delete hidden. These are pretty smooth. I think ZBrush will handle those just fine. If you want to, though, you can go down here to masking. Where are we at here? Masking, mask border, Control tap, and that just masks my border out. And then you go to your deformation menu. You can do like a polish by features, and that'll just kind of polish those unmasked borders there. And then all you got to do, in order to get usable geometry out of this right now, is just DynaMesh. Just go to ZRemesher. We'll change our adaptive size like down to 10. Target polygon kind of 5 is fine. It's symmetrical, so you can keep symmetry on if you want to. And again, we're going to let, instead of, you know, trying to get a bunch of pieces with circles cut in them, duplicated and welded, and hopefully getting it to smooth correctly, which you could totally do using Nanomesh is a pretty easy way to do that. Or you can just do it manually. You can just make your circle mesh and then just Control-Shift-Drag and then weld your points together. You know, replay last. You can just do that a bunch. We do ZRemesh half. Just keep hitting ZRemesh half, and then you can go through here and do your, let's do an extrude all polygons. We'll give this some thickness. And it looks like there might be some weird stuff. Let's do a weld real quick. Geometry, modify topology, weld points is where we're at. Let's go ahead and, there's a weld distance as well. And if you ever need to also, you can go through here. And it looks like our first foray into this does a little bit better job. Bridge 2 points. You can kind of sew this stuff up maybe. Let's see. Looks like in this foray we all right, we'll do this. We'll do bridge edges. We'll go here to here. Now let's do a mirror and weld. I guess you could collapse those if you wanted to. Anyway, you should be able to do a extrude all polygons. And now we can do a crease polygroup, and then we'll let, we can turn dynamic on and we'll let them do the heavy lifting. This one kind of gave me some warbly holes. I'll have to see what's up with that. I might have done something weird. But that's the quicker way to get a cylinder to, you know, smooth correctly and poke holes in it, and just again letting ZRemesher kind of build in those concentric rings around the holes, that kind of thing. It kind of did it warp. Let me see if I can fix that real quick. So we'll go back here. We split that off. Let's do, I'm going to do this. Let's see, delete, hidden, turn off DynaMesh. Let's run here. Let's do a ZRemesh. Let's see if this does a little bit better job here. We'll do target ball icon count of 5. Enter. Let's turn off. I guess we can leave that on. That's not a big deal. It shouldn't be anyways. And then ZRemesh. Let's see. I might have, because I think I undid the polish polygroup border with the masking, so maybe that kind of threw it for a loop. Because it will try and build in the aliasing. I did a little bit better job. We can do half, and again, you know, ZRemesher is, you know, evaluating your mesh here. So, and you don't have to go this low. I'm just keep hitting half because it's fun to do, but you don't even have to go this. You can keep it as high as you want to, really. Q-mesh polygroup all. You can do Q-mesh or extrude, and then we'll do another crease PG. There we go. There's our barrel shroud. Now, when you have this, you can also do Q-mesh polygroup all and hold down Shift, and then you can increase the thickness here, or you can kind of bring this in. You know, you kind of evaluate and adjust as needed, and then you do Shift D. It's already built it for you. So, and you know, you also have those rings too. So you can go through here, and you can do like, I want a bevel edge loop complete here, here, and here. And then we can do another crease polygroup here and hit D. If you want to bevel all of your creased edges, there's an option for that under the crease menu. You can bevel and then choose your bevel width. And then you can do, let's do another crease polygroup. More crease polygroup. And now you can build in kind of bevels on each one of your creases there. Kind of cool. Cool, awesome. And ZModeler default on spacebar when you open a polygroup view. Haven't gotten this so far. It's so when you're just like modeling and you're using your standard brush to kind of sculpt. If you hit spacebar, you'll have draw size, a bunch of options in here to kind of, it's like a cool little marking menu. And again, if you hit S, that'll be your draw size, which I use a lot. If you have the ZModeler brush selected, which is B, Z, so whenever you hit B, that's the brush menu, and then Z will narrow it down to all the brushes that start with Z, and then you'll see those little orange keys there. You can hit M, and then I'll grab the ZModeler brush. And now with the ZModeler brush, you can you go into polyframe here. You can turn off your lines too if you want, or turn off fill and just see the lines and don't see the polygroups. There's a lot of different options in here. But here's where you can go QMesh. We'll do QMesh a single poly. And now we can just do basic box modeling here, and then you can go to maybe like, oh yeah, and so you hover over a face and hit spacebar, or hold down spacebar, and there's your polygon actions and your target. So basically what you want to do with the polygon and what polygons you want to select. In this case, it's a single poly, so we can do delete a single poly here, and then you can hover over an edge, hold down spacebar, and now you can like bridge, two holes, circle, optimal curvature, optimal resolution, and then you can just tell it to do its thing there. Or if you want to have it dynamic, you can go bridge, two holes, spline, or you can do circle, and then just choose interactive curvature and resolution. And now when you go through here, you can like pull out, and you can go up and down. We'll do resolution. Back and forth, we'll do how far it pulls out. So you can kind of just go through here and do that. And then D again is that dynamic subdiv here. So D and Shift D. And this one is set to smooth. There's also Q grid, which is interesting, which you might get into. Cool. Everybody caught up? All right. I can do, let's see, 7:20. We got a little bit of time left. Anything else I had in my stream options here? Not really. I guess I can delete this one. You know what? I'll keep that one. I'll do another demo on my channel just because. Polygon all or Polygon Island. Polygon Island is interesting. So a couple cool things you can do with this. So if you hold down Alt, you can Alt Tab. You can Alt grab a bunch of things. So let's say we want to pop this thing off here. We can hover over a face. We can do QMesh. In this case, because we're Alt painting, it'll treat it as a single poly, or polygroup all, doesn't really matter. If you do single poly, it'll pull them all out. It treats Alt, holding down Alt and painting, as a single poly here. However, if you pull out, that'll QMesh. If you hold down Shift, it'll just move along that surface normal. If you hold down Control, it'll pop off a piece. It'll pop off an area here. So now if we do QMesh polygroup all, it's going to do all these purple polygroups at the same time, which is not what we want. If you do polygroup island, this polygroup isn't touching any others, so we can just pull this one out. Or, like you were saying, it was, yeah, polygon island. So in that case, yeah, that would be the polygroup island. You can do curved island. Basically, island is anything that's away from everything else, that's not touching anything else. So that would be a way to do that, like so. And then if you want to pop this into its own piece here, you can just hold down Control Shift, and you can grab it, or you can grab a little piece, Control Shift A, and then do a split hidden under the split menu. And then again, you can Alt drag these ones, QMesh. You can do a single poly or polygroup all, just pull that back through. There we go. And that'll do those, and then you can go through here. If you wanted to bridge two of them, two little faces here, you can hover over a face, and then you can do a bridge connected polys. And we'll do connected polys, we'll do 100% curvature, 8 resolution, triangle sides, and then you can go through here, and let's go ahead and change it to align to normal here. So now we can pop in a couple little circle things. And then, and if you ever want to have this thing, you know, you can always go back in here to your poly group menu here. Where are we at? So poly group by normals, and that'll go through here and just evaluate your surface. Now it doesn't do it across symmetry, so you want to do a quick mirror and weld to make both sides symmetrical if you want. But bunch of different ways to do that. And then you can use D and Shift D, and then you can do like, you know, crease tolerance and crease those edges up if you want to, like so. And then really all your targets here, if you do QMesh flat island, and let's say, oh, you know what, let's just do this. Hover over a face, do polygroup, a single poly, and now if you tap and then hold down Alt, it'll cycle through different polygroups here. So we can just make these all different polygroups here, and then if we want to, we can go, there we go, QMesh flat island, and now if we do this, it's still going to grab all of these because it's a flat island. This whole thing is flat. They share that island. It's not going to go around this side because that's no longer part of the flat island. So you can just grab all of those at once regardless of the polygroups, just because the target will allow you to grab all sorts of cool stuff in there. So when alt selecting multiple polys in ZModeler, how do you clear that selection and start over? I think it's like, oh, I messed that up. Probably my default would be to undo it. And that's actually a quick way to kind of make these all one poly group, and then you can do polygroup a single poly, and then it'll do all of these at once because they're all tapped. Yeah, and if you mess that up, I mean, you can, if you alt drag over and then you alt drag over again, it will just make a different polygroup as well. It's kind of a cool thing you can do, but probably just undo would be what I would do to clear it. If you ever want to steal a polygroup, like say, you know what, I want to do a QMesh polygroup all, but I also want to include these two side faces, just hover over a face here and then do polygroup, a single poly in this case. So we'll tap here, and then instead of tapping Alt, what we're going to do is we're going to tap here and hold down and tap Shift, and that'll inherit it. And then you can go through here and mark those with the same poly, and then you can do polygroup all. So you can kind of go through and copy polygroups for you. I've been trying to make a spaceship red and tried the masking surface, then extracting it with getting flaky geometry. Yeah, I did a go back through either on my channel or Pixelogics. We went through a bunch of different variations of doing that. On my channel, it's called, I broke it off into its own highlight, which is called like hard surface walkthrough or something like that. On Pixelogics, you'll have to go through the video. But yeah, if you want to extract cleanly, you know, if you can, the easiest way to extract cleanly is to use slicing, because that'll actually slice geometry through here. So we'll do slice curve, like so. And then if you want to make these go together, you can go here and here and here. Control W. And then you can do extract by visibility, extract by masking, a bunch of different things you can do. But if you do extract on this thing and hit accept, and now this extraction will probably be pretty clean because we're using slice. Let's say we didn't though. There's a way around that. So if you don't use slice, let's go ahead and hit, let's just undo all that. Let's say you wanted to use masking. What you can do is, let's go to mask curve, and we'll just alt tap once. That'll give us a mask, and then we'll do hold down control. We'll go to mask circle, and we'll mask that out. And now let's say you want to extract off of this thing. So what you would do is go over here to extract, and that'll kind of give you a warbly edge. We can clean that up. It's not a big deal. So we'll go ahead and hit accept. Grab your extraction here. You're going to notice we have an outside polygroup, an inside polygroup, and a middle polygroup. We're going to use that to our advantage. So one easy way to do that is to go down here to deformation, polish by features. And if you do closed circle, it's going to try and maintain your volume, so it's not going to change your volume very much. But that'll go ahead and smooth the transitions between the polys. It'll go ahead and protect them. If you have open circle, that won't maintain your volume, but man, it'll really polish this down. Another thing you can do with this extraction is if you want to keep these corners nice and tight, what you can do is you can either manually go through here and hover over an edge and do like crease edge, or you can go through here, hold down Control Shift, and we'll just isolate this. And now we're going to do a slice, so we can like slice through here. And let's go ahead and, you know, wherever we have, that's a bit of a bad job here. There we go. You can use circle or slice clip or whatever. And that made us a new polygroup, or you could just, I guess, polygroup all that. Let's do a quick mirror and weld. Oops. Oh, we're not even across the x-axis, are we? Okay, let's do mirror and weld. Okay, my bad. I didn't even, you know, always turn on your floor and see how you're oriented. Make your life easier. So we're across Z here. So let's go ahead and do a mirror and weld across the Z axis. There we go. So now that I have either a crease line or separate polygroups, now when we go over here to, what was I looking for? Polish by features. We'll do a closed circle here, and we start cranking that up. It's going to respect those creases, so it'll keep those corners nice and sharp for you. The problem with this, and why I don't do it very often, is say I wanted to poke a hole through this. So I'm going to do QMesh, a single poly here, and I just want to pull this back. In this case, it worked. The geometry is close enough, but if you want to, you can actually isolate this, go ahead and delete hidden, and now you can go through here and do like QMesh polygroup all, and that'll go ahead and make those the exact same. And now you can go through here if the other way wasn't working, and now you can just go through here and do QMesh. If we do island, it's whoa. If we do polygroup island, so that's just an poly island, which is all one polygroup, so it's going to do all of it. We'll do polygroup island, and that'll just go through one at a time. Or if you want to do them all at the same time, do polygroup all. Pull that through. Now remember, while you're doing that you can skip all that as well. After you do your extraction, sometimes what I like to do is, let's go ahead and extract that again. Accept. And now when we did the extraction, you're going to see how it kind of just softened those transitions as well. You can turn off polish or turn it down on the extraction, and that'll kind of get rid of some of that. But you can also go through here, isolate this top one, delete hidden, and do my personal favorite, which is geometry ZRemesher. We'll just do half, adaptive size down to 0. And then we can just, you know, get simpler geometry to kind of mess around with, and then we can just do a QMesh polygroup all, and then we'll flip those. And now we can go through here real quickly, and we'll do a crease edge here, and we'll do a crease edge here. And now really, it's just really simple. And then we can do a crease PG, and now we've got nice simple geometry that we can then go through and do all sorts of weirdo ZModeler stuff, QMesh, whatever. And we'll do another crease PG, like so, that type of thing. Yeah, but yeah, and if you want to use mask, you just a little bit more cleanup, but slice is a lot cleaner because again, it just really slices a perfect line all through that stuff. Cool. Yeah, and let me again, I can't really dig through. Let me point you straight to it. If you go here and you look at, it's called a video, oh boy, I do too many videos. Go all the way down to video 43, hard surface excerpt here. And that'll walk you through a bunch of different options. Kind of what we went through, but also a little bit more here. Cool, perfect. How we doing? What were we doing today? We did the barrel shroud. We got that, and that was just your mission. Now, if you did want to, let's do a variation of that. I don't know how well it's going to work, but we'll talk a little bit about micromesh. Oh, you know what? I have some videos I need to upload. I did. If you go to, we did the knurling walkthrough where we tiled the different pyramids and offset them so we could do a tiling knurling texture manually. I also did one on the Joseph Dress plugin, which was the nano tile textures. This is a really cool tool to do nano tiling, nanomesh tiling in different directions. We can do that real quick if you guys want. Yes, and the ZBrush Classroom. You know what? Let's just do it. So what we can do. Time we got left 32 minutes. I can just upload the video too, but we'll just do a really quick tiling thing. So we'll do a create new tile tool. What that's going to do is go ahead and make a square document here. We'll go ahead and zoom out. And if we pull out, we'll actually see that this is surrounded by other areas, so that when we pull in a Nanomesh and turn off random array, it'll go ahead and do tiling. Again, just really quickly, hover over a face. We're going to do insert Nanomesh on polygon, all polygons. If you didn't want to, you could go through here and do polygroup, polyloop like so. And you can just do this if you want to offset different indices. But in this case, we'll just do insert Nanomesh, all polygons, hit M, and we'll do a ring. We'll just drag out rings here. Go into our Nanomesh options here, and we'll do, here's our Z rotation, Y rotation, and X rotation. There we go. Change our X rotation down. Turn off random array. And then if you turn on random distribution, you can kind of scatter these things in. And you'll notice when it comes over here, it automatically duplicates here. When it goes up here, it automatically shows up again down here. So we're already getting perfect tiling. If we want to do another one, so insert Nanomesh, we'll hit M, and we'll do one. The example I did on my video I'm going to upload today was bird seed. But we'll do a simpler one here. We'll just do stars. Now, if we just drag out, it's going to obliterate our previous one. So when you're dragging out, hold down Shift, and that'll add an extra index over here. So now we can change, if you change these rotational values, and then you can go over here to X and Y and Z variants, and that'll kind of just give you random variants here. And again, you want to turn off random array to get this to work correctly. And then you can do random distribution here. And now you can go over here to create seamless maps, and you can turn on, we'll just do height. You can do AO, color if you want, normal. We'll do height and normal, and then we'll hit create seamless maps. And then we'll click save, and then we'll just go to desktop here. Call it test. We'll give that a second to go through. Cool. So we went ahead and exported our normal map, and also in our alpha here you're going to see we have a test height. If you want to check that out, let's go ahead and do document. We'll turn on W size, hit new. Don't save the changes here, and we'll just grab a polyplane 3D, make PolyMesh 3D, and then under surface noise, we can turn on noise, and now by default, the surface noise, we crank that strength down, is going to be this kind of noise where you can go through here and change, you know, kind of this kind of rocky, dirt-looking noise. If we click this little alpha on-off down here, and we'll go to test height, we're going to bring in our rings and stars, and it's going to be mixing them both together. Turn your mix basic noise down to 0, and then, and now we have strength here. So we can kind of crank that up or down, and alpha scale. So if we scale this in and out, you're going to see it's perfectly tiling. It's height information, I think. Did we do that? Let's see. Test height, yeah. Alpha scale, magnify, strength. And yeah, so you can see it's tiling, and let's go ahead and reset that curve. That's why it's doing weirdo stuff. There we go. So, geez, Pepper. So we got our alpha scale here, we got the height information, and you can change the strength of that if you'd like to. Hit OK. And now we have that perfectly tiling, scattered Nanomesh for everything you'll need. But that's just a faster way as opposed to, you know, you could set that all up manually, but this plugin, and you can download this, go to Joseph Gumroad, he has that available for download, or on the ZBrush Central forums. Just do ZBrush, Google nanotile textures, Drust ZBrush Central. It'll find it. Cool. How to reset? I'm doing fine. Thanks for asking. How to reset the render settings to default? Let me see. You talking about these render settings? I think they should be by. I'm not sure if you were talking about this plugin in particular. I really don't know. I guess I could initialize. Oops. There we go. And that would probably reset it, or just shutting ZBrush down and opening it up. Yeah, you can. So you can go through here and you can have rocks tiled, and then on top of that you could tile pine needles, and then on top of that you tile pine cones. On top of that you can pile leaves, and again you're just stacking those indices in your Nanomesh. And so as you're building up those layers, it's all tiling as long as you turn off that random array. And yeah, that's exactly what it is. In fact, do I even have that? Hold on, give me a second. I totally forgot I did this. I need to stay on top of my game here. Let's see, recording, miscellaneous, exported. No, it's under. Give me a second here. Yeah. So when let me turn the sound down as well. Yeah. So when we went through here, I tiled up. We went through and we sculpt. And again, I'll upload this to my YouTube channel later today. We sculpt a bunch of different bird seeds, and then we insert those as different indices, and we scatter them around. And then when we export those, we have tiling bird seed, or whatever. You can make it a forest floor, or whatever you want to do, whatever scattered tiling you want to do, or not scattered. You don't have to use scattered tiling. You can do, something as simple as knurling using this exact same thing. Order asked me just a weird question. Use a default ZBrush tablet setting to tweak them. I just use the default as far as I remember. And where those would be, there's preferences, and then there's your brush here. And we talked a little bit about this when we were talking about turning off tablet pressure temporarily if you wanted to see that. So tablet pressure, Z intensity, size. These look like I think those got bumped up. Let's just really quickly restart ZBrush. I've been putting it through its paces this morning, jumping around. Go ahead and load that back up. But yeah, as far as I remember, it was just default, and really I didn't even mess with. Sometimes also you can go in here to mem. A lot of people ask me about this. Like, do you change it in these memory settings? I probably should, or where is it? Performance. Yeah, you can like test your multi-threading and make sure that your ZBrush is working optimal. Is it possible to convert meshes using nano tile to regular subtool? Yeah, and all it really is doing is using nano technology. Nanotechnology, that sounds really cool. But it's just instances. So what you can do is, for example, let's go ahead and do make polymesh 3D, geometry. Let's do reconstruct a couple times, delete higher. And then again, if you want to make your own insert mesh, you just got to make it and have it sitting out here. Don't feel like you're stuck with just using primitives, obviously. Like when I did the bird seed, it was just bird seed, so that's what we made. And you can also inherit the colors. But if we go to insert nanomesh, we'll do all polygons again. And actually, you know what? Let's make it a little weirder. Let's do insert nanomesh, polygroup all, and on this one here, we'll do hit M, and we'll do a star. And then if we go over here to our nanomesh, now this can change because it's just a instance. You can move the geometry around, it'll follow it. You can go through here and hover over a face and go, you know what, polygroup, a single poly, hold down shift, and now you can add to that selection of polygroups. Or if you want to, hold down shift on the blue one and you can get rid of those. So it's, again, it's just a polygroup that inherits instance geometry. But now when you go here to nanomesh, you have your object here. Just go to inventory, one to mesh, and now you have your stars as a separate group here. I'll split hidden. And now they're a separate subtool here. So you got your plane, and then you got your nanomesh. I do have Shane's ruler. Yes, Shane Olson gave me this startup menu so you can use. There's a little ruler. Let's go ahead and grab that here. So you can start your ZBrush life out kind of oriented. So we got our floor turned on, and you're going to see that, let's see, yeah. Z forward, you got your ruler here if you need to have this for units here. All that good stuff. So he has a character class, you can look that up, and or just a ZBrush class you can take. And he let me check that out. Yeah, thank you for the link. What's the benefit of turning off the pressure in your Wacom pin versus just using a mouse? Nothing really, and just unless you just don't want to reach over and touch your mouse. Honestly, it's faster just to go grab your mouse for me, but just in case, I like to be like, you know what, just in case. It still looks like, hold on, give us a second, let me grab, make PolyMesh 3D here, matcap gray. Seems to be working, because usually, okay, there it is. Okay, yeah, okay, I'm dumb. So whatever, depending on the brush, if you do ZModeler, so BZM, wait, let's try that again. BZM, there we go. ZModeler brush has these tablet pressure settings set to fully cranked out. If you go back to standard brush, it'll reset them down. That's what was throwing me for a loop. I was like, wait, I thought, yeah, it's brush specific. I do like stars. It is, it's one of the cooler ones. Just looks neat. Cool. All right. How we doing? We got 15 minutes left. Not a whole lot of time to do anything. Anybody want me to model something in 15 minutes? And then, yeah, eventually I am going to have to get that sci-fi lady done, so I might have to come in here and just start adding streaming topics that I can hit up some other time. Yeah, we did on my thing here. Yeah, so there's a lot of really cool stuff. So let's do that. Let's do a tool here. Let's go grab Ryan Kingsline's skeleton in here. Because when you're doing character art, it's all about that skeleton. So I'm going to grab the skeleton here. I'm going to do delete other. And if I want to steal this skull, you can polygroup this thing if you want to. I'm just going to, again, use our trusty lasso here, Control-Shift-A, and we'll go ahead and split hidden. So we got the skull separate from the body. You know what? Don't even need the body anymore. And now what we can do is we can go to the side here, and we're going to do Control-Shift, and we're going to slice here. And now we can do our stroke. And we're going to go over here to our curve. And if you hold down Shift, that'll open up more than one menu at a time. And we'll do frame mesh polygroups here. Now, if we did want to frame this with a star, what we need to do is turn that into a curve brush. So I'm going to grab my trusty star. And I'm going to go make PolyMesh 3D. And I'm going to hit B, create insert mesh, new. And then, so basically what that's going to do is just create an insert mesh that I can now just insert stars all I want. However, if you go over here to stroke and then turn on curve mode, I now have stars attached to a curve. Now, if I want to space them out more, what I can do is take just curve step and like crank that up to like 1.5. And now they'll be spaced further apart, or I can crank it down to like 0.25. And now they're going to be really close together. We'll change that back to 1. There we go. So now that we have our stars on here, we can go through and we can frame that curve. Is there anything else we want to do? We can do intensity. So many cool things you can do with this. I guess let's go back here. Oops, drag it out. Hit F, edit mode, F, there we go. And now any brush that has a curve brush, so we just made our new insert mesh brush, if we tap this curve, it'll replace it with stars. Go ahead and turn off X. There we go. And you can make them bigger, or you can make them smaller, or if you want to, you can go to brush, BC, brush curve, or brush insert. Some of these have curves on them. We can do army curve, and again, we did this one on our channel where we just did, you know, straight up bullets around the side. Let's use our mouse. There we go. And oh, that's another thing. So the Z intensity should be at 100. You can crank that down, and that'll give you flatter versions, or it'll give you 100%, or you can also go down here to your brush modifiers, and you can over crank it, so you can do a strength multiplier, and that'll actually make them, you know, over crank that. Tap off, and let's go ahead and do split mask points. And now we have this. You can go through here, and you can, like, let's turn off the paint here. You can inflate these up, wherever you want to do. Let's see. Did I miss one here? Cool. Yeah, we made the skull sword with the horns. That was pretty fun. Possible export strokes to splines. You can do it through FiberMesh. So if we, you know what, let's make just the most rockinest skull you've ever seen this morning. Let's turn on X symmetry here. And we'll go ahead and mask here. Let's unmask that. That'll work. So now if you go over here to, yeah, as far as like exporting curves, I'm not sure about that. But what you can export fiber meshes as splines. And you can also, I usually use, you know, when I'm doing my hair stuff, I'll drag out a card and then use that as a sub-D service to control splines. So you can maybe do that. But let's go ahead, since we're talking about it. Where are we at here? Subtool. Let's do FiberMesh. Why am I not? There it is. And then we'll do preview here. Oh man, this is going to be the coolest thing I've ever made in my life. So we're going to go to modifiers here. Let's change our length here. We'll change our max fibers and we'll change our coverage. Let's give them some really thick hair here. And then if you want them, you know, so if you turn on gravity and your camera's facing this way, you can crank up gravity and it'll kind of just go down, or you can do opposite and go up. You can also turn your camera upside down and then turn on gravity, and it'll just kind of fall in the flow of the gravity if you want. Oh, another really cool thing that I forgot about, I think Axel brought this up on my channel. If you go here and, okay, let's do this. Let's do, we're going to go to morph target, and let's make sure everything's, okay. We're going to store a morph target, and then we're going to do a mask, and we're going to invert that mask. We're going to pull this up, and now we're going to do a switch. So now we have a that pulled up thing in there, and now when we go to turn on our hair, we can go to morph target guided and just turn that button on, and then wherever you had your morph target, that will control where the fiber mesh goes. So we'll go ahead and turn them upside down. Well, again, we'll crank that gravity. And if we like this, let's go ahead and do our max fibers down a bit. And then our coverage. And let's say, okay, we'll accept this. So yes, we want to accept that. And then we go to our subtool here, and now our hair, our head, we don't need a mask anymore. And then our fibers here, we can go to BG, brush groom. You can go through here and just kind of start grooming this stuff up and around. You can twist these things together. Groom, spike, spin, knot. And we'll turn on our perspective here. And then when we go to our BPR, going to give us a really nice hair render, and we're, you know, it kind of, you can see it smooths out that transition here. So if you go over here to our BPR settings, you're going to see that it's doing a 2 subdivide, and kind of changing a little bit of the niceness of our render there on our fiber strands. So there you go. There's your rock and roll cover album. Yeah, whenever you do, you know, frame mesh on a skull and add rockin' hair, then yeah, it's automatic metal cover. And you can change fiber mesh to mesh, like convert BPR to geo. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, what you want to do, what you're gonna want to do here is underneath the BPR settings, I think if you change, what is it? You change something. Preview setting, export. Here's your export curves. Sorry, I don't do a ton of fiber mesh, obviously. You can probably tell by watching me. I think if you change your subdivisions up, no, this is the BPR settings. So let's do this again. Let's turn that off. And now let's do like that. And now we'll go back in here to preview. And you know what? Let's turn off morph target guided. Yes. Okay, let's change that length as well. So good. So good. So now that we have that, if you go down here to your profile and you crank that up, it'll say to render single-sided fibers uses round cylinders, you can change the BPR settings. So you can go ahead and I think you can just export this, and you can also change the number of segments here. And again, you can change the segments in the BPR settings, but if you don't do that, you can do it in here, and that'll actually make geometry, I think. Again, it's been a long time. Let's go ahead and skip that note. So we're changing that up here. Let's go ahead and change that profile a little bit more here. Root and ISO. Here we go, profile 4. We're just kind of rounding out our hair here, and then we're going to do segments is 7. There's 10 segments. There's 9. All right, so now we can hit, and also let's do max fibers. Crank that down just a bit. There we go. And now we're going to do accept. Oh, and we turned on fast preview here. But I think, there we go, and that's the BPR. But I think when you do that, let's try this again. Let's go to preview, accept. Oh, I turned on always yes. If you don't turn on yes, it'll give you the actual geometry that you can go through, and I think you can export it, and it'll just export as geometry in that case. Let's just try that. Let's see. Again, I don't get into FiberMesh too much anymore these days. The test. Let's go to desktop. Let's see what this does. Yeah, there you go. So the preview is showing that, but this is actually just geo at this point. So now you can do whatever you'd like to it. Cool, cool. And as far as merging FiberMesh subtools, I don't know if it keeps it FiberMesh or not. All these FiberMesh questions. I'm not good at FiberMesh. Let's see, edit mode F. I probably should have turn off polyframe here. Let's go back here, and then we'll do. Let's just try it. Why not? Just takes a second. Perfect. So now if we take this one, let's go ahead and delete that one. Yeah, it looks like when you do merge them down, it just converts them to geo. And now we can kind of mix and match. So now if we go in here and go, you know what? Let's do, I don't want this hair. Go split that back out, but I do want that mustache and that hair. Best of both worlds. Actually, how are we doing on time? Okay, we'll start wrapping it up. Cool, cool. Oh yeah, for measurement, yeah, you can go to the transpose line. You can change your transpose notches. Let's see, if we go to transpose here, you can, so when you drag out a transpose line, you'll see these little markers in here. You can use that to indicate different units if you'd like. I also have sometimes, when I'm just doing stuff, I have a little 8-head Z tool I can bring out here, go into edit mode. I can just pop this over to the side, hit Shift S to save a snapshot there, and then I can go back to, oh, you know what? I should just switched over to a tool there, because I'm going to have to clear that out. So let's go ahead and grab a Z-sphere here, and then we can go into our tool menu here. Drag this out, so that'll be our little 8 heads measurement. and then Shift S to do a snapshot here. And now, while you're modeling and stuff, you can always verify it by your own units if you'd like. Yeah, so Rogue Bear asked if that was a plugin for hair sculpting. Yeah, well, kind of. It's I don't know if a plugin's the right word, but it's just FiberMesh over here in the FiberMesh isn't going to show up on there. There we go. Yeah, so FiberMesh, and all it is, there's a bunch of different ways to do it, but yeah, you mask where you want it to go, hit preview, and then oh, we already had a mask on there. Let's go into solo mode here, hit preview. And then there you go, and then you can go through here and change length and width and height and all that good stuff. And then when you have that accepted, then you can go through here and do your, you don't have to use grooming tools, you can use any brush you want, but it's just a little easier to kind of use because the grooming tools have built in underneath the auto masking mask by auto mask FiberMesh. If you hover over that, that'll give you, and you hold down Control, it'll give you more information. So, and that'll allow you to mask out individual parts of a fiber. So the way it's masked out now, it usually protects the root. So you're only going to be messing with. Oh man, that's so awesome! It'll protect the root, so you're only like sculpting out the ends there. Cool, cool. Is it possible to bake FiberMesh text to texture for low poly use? Yeah, if it's just geo, you can bake it out to whatever you'd like. Time assigning a texture, that would be, if we have one, let me go ahead and do another one real quick. So we'll select this one here. And we'll do another example real quick before I head out. We'll do a preview this one, and I'm going to change our profile and segments. Well, segments we'll keep at 3. So now if our profile is set at 1, we can do cards here. We're going to do, let's change our coverage here to be really thick, and then the max fibers. And let's also go into our width profile and crank both of these up. And also we can change it so that instead of going thick to thin, we can do scale root, scale tip. We'll just change both of those to 1. There we go. And now if we want to assign a texture here, let's go into your textures and just grab our star here. And the cool thing about this one is if you do a BPR render, it'll actually go through and you can't really see it here, but you can kind of see it's using the alpha to actually project a shadow correctly on here. And these are all now, and when you assign a texture, they're all being baked 0 to 1. So you can see so each strip is going from root to tip 0 to 1, which is very useful when you're doing you want to assign your own textures and stuff. Cool, cool. All right, I will I will go ahead and head out. It's 8 o'clock. Hope you guys had some fun. Hope everything made sense, and I'll catch y'all on the flip side here. Just before I leave though, let's go one last render. You guys can use this for your desktop. It's gonna be sweet. Go ahead and capture this from the video, and then you got the coolest looking thing in the history of the world ever made. Cool. See you guys next time, guys.